Skyler.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third annual Walt Disney World Attraction Bracket Challenge. On this beautiful Selection Wednesday, we will be looking at what Walt Disney World attractions will be competing in the 2020 bracket, where they are ranked, and their likelihood to go all the way. 64 attractions will compete today. Round 1 will open up in a staggered format at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for now, let's discuss where we think these rides and shows will be placed and who they will be going up against. I am your announcer, Nate Begle, and I'm joined by my co-host and program director, Disney Dan.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
And also joining us is our color commentator, Kevin Perjurer.
Thank you, Nate. I'm happy to be here, and I'm ready. I have my statistics on the hip, so let's do this.
All right, boys, let's take a closer look at this year's competition.
All right. I'm super excited about this. Let's dive right into some really interesting information about some of the matchups, our previous brackets, and all kinds of great statistics from our good friend, Kevin. You ready, boys?
Fantastic, Dan. Yes, absolutely.
Kevin, you want to take us through a little bit of this and tell us what the attraction bracket is, a little bit of its history, and kind of explain it to everyone out there who might not be familiar with a bracket tournament like this?
Absolutely. So this is very similar to March Madness. We have 64 teams, or in this case, attractions, competing against one another. They'll go head-to-head on a Twitter vote. And depending on who wins the Twitter vote, that decides who moves on to the next round. It's single elimination. If you lose to an attraction, you're out. So after the first round of 64, we go to round 2 with only 32 teams competing. After that, we have the Sweet 16, then the Elite 8, then the Final 4, and then finally the championship. So with this, there's going to be rankings as well, and that's what we're going to be looking at today, because voting starts at 8. We're going to be discussing where people are on the bracket and what their road to the championship might look like. This all depends on rankings. Now, if you've ever seen sports, this is going to be repetitive, but if you haven't, each part of the bracket is separated into 4 different regions, and each region has 16 teams competing, ranked 1 through 16. You want to be a number 1 seed. If you're a number 1 seed, that means that you're the highest ranking seed, but it also means that you have the easiest road. If we look here at the 2018 bracket, do we have that pulled up, Dan?
Sure do.
Awesome. So this 2018 bracket right here, we're looking at this. Pirates of the Caribbean is the number 1 seed. So they're going to go in the first round against the 16 seed Tom Sawyer Island. It's going to be an easy matchup. They blow them out of the water. And this is why Pirates of the Caribbean get such an easy track to the championship. And that's what makes this so interesting, because depending on whether an attraction is ranked higher or lower is going to depend on their performance. And it's not just because people love the People Mover or because people love the Haunted Mansion. It's all about these matchups. It's about who loves something more, and that's where things get interesting.
Absolutely. So we take it over to the 2019 bracket. We've got a really amazing turnout with voters. 2018 saw about 700 people voting, with 2019 with 2,000 voters. So I really appreciate that turnout. Haunted Mansion took it 2 years in a row. So there's lots of really interesting kinds of stats that Kevin has pulled together based off of the numbers and how people have voted to really kind of pull together this Selection Wednesday, which I'm pretty excited to take a peek at. So, Kevin, up next.
So this is 2019. Or we're going to look at the 2020 attraction editions?
Yep. Nate, do you want to take us through some of the attractions that were added into the bracket this year in 2020?
Absolutely. For this new year of this bracket, the new attractions in 2020. We got three new, really exciting attractions that could cause an upset for some of the old favorites. First, we have from Hollywood Studios, Smuggler's Run, which opened with Galaxy's Edge back in 2019. Now, the big thing is, could Galaxy's Edge limited success impact the performance of this attraction in this bracket? Disney Dan?
Yeah, it's fascinating how, Galaxy's Edge opened with kind of a lukewarm response, and kind of bundled in that was Smuggler's Run, who kind of got a little bit of flack, and I'm interested to see how that's going to affect where they rank in their seedings. Kevin?
I totally agree. Smuggler's Run is a C ticket attraction. That's the caliber it is. It is not an E. I mean, it's an E ticket comparatively, but it functions within the land as a C ticket.
Absolutely.
It carried that land on its back for those months without Rise of the Resistance. And so all attention, not just the public's attention, not just the super fan, but just the media's attention in general, was pointing to this one attraction without the bigger E ticket to compare it to. And so in that way, Smuggler's Run got a lot of bad press. At the same time, it got a lot of writers and a lot of hype. That might even itself out. It might help. It's going to be really interesting to see how it does. Personally, I enjoy Smuggler's Run. I'd like to see it go pretty far.
Absolutely. Nate, what other rides came out this year?
All right. After Smuggler's Run, we have the brand new ride in the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which was very popular. Everyone was very excited about it. The Rise of the Resistance. Now, the things going for this ride are the new queuing system and the boarding groups that are engulfed with that queuing system. So it's not just getting in a line, waiting for hours and hours and hours for a new ride. It's a new kind of state-of-the-art way to wait for an attraction. Now, could downtime and early mornings affect this rank? Disney Dan.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me how they rolled out this really great new boarding group system that effectively will work, although I don't know if it works super well for a ride when it first opens, because the results are high crowds, a lot of people wanting to get on this ride, a lot of people willing to wait, and then ultimately have to get up super early, don't know if they're going to be able to ride it or not. And then that combined with when they do get a boarding group, some downtime mixed in there, so sometimes maybe you don't even get the chance to ride it. I think that there's a lot of negativity surrounding this ride, so I'm interested to see if that's going to knock it down or still give it a really nice ranking. Kevin, what are the stats? What do we got? What's some information about this ride? What do we have to look forward to with it?
I disagree. I think this ride has a huge potential to go very far. It's going to be interesting to see where it's ranked. Of course, this is the ride that might dethrone one of those one seeds that otherwise would do really well. So I'm not comfortable with saying that it has too much bad press. I think that's mainly within the super fan, or more accurately, the pass holder. But this is a live Twitter poll. Who knows who's going to see this? Rise of the Resistance has that press of people, that word of mouth saying this is the best attraction ever. I think it's got a good shot to go a long way. I'm not ready to count it out just yet. I'm also interested to see, I ran a poll to see where it would be. I said, where would you want to rank this? 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, or higher? And it, far and away, everyone thought it should be a 1 seed in that poll, at least. So it'll be interesting to see where it's placed on the board. Because if it's placed in the 1 seed, like I mentioned earlier, it could have an easier route to get to the championship. And then once it gets up against something like a Haunted Mansion, who knows?
Absolutely. Nate, I think one more big ticket ride hit the parks this year. Lay it on me.
That would be the newest ride to hit theme parks. Again, the third one in Hollywood Studios alone. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, taking over for the great movie ride, the centerpiece in the Hollywood Studios. Now, this is Mickey's first ride in the park. Hard to believe that Mickey Mouse, the main character of Walt Disney World, this is his first ever attraction/ride in the park. Now, long wait time for ride construction. We've been waiting for a long time. It replaced a beloved attraction, like I said, the great movie ride, a nostalgic centerpiece for most people's childhood, including my own. Disney Dan, what do we think are the chances for this brand new ride?
Well, I think that one of the things we have to kind of take stock in, and we are kind of hinting at it with all three of these attractions, are they're new, and I don't believe a lot of America has had the chance to ride them yet. And so I don't know if there's going to be a lot of fandom that's going to support it, because these rides are new, and what they've seen on YouTube, what they've seen, on, Disney press streams kind of stuff. I don't know if that's enough to give it enough strength to beat something like the Tower of Terror, or People Mover, or Splash Mountain. It's going to be interesting to see if this has the strength to take down some of the kings that have dominated the brackets the previous 2 years. Kevin, what do you think? Is it strong enough? Do you think it's going to do it?
See, I don't know, because this is one of those rides that no one got to ride. Very few people. It was open for 2 weeks before the parks closed. And even when it was there, people were still rushing to get to Rise of the Resistance. I've ridden it twice. It is a very okay ride. It's the perfect ride for that park. It evens out the park wonderfully. I'm so happy they have a ride of that caliber, but that caliber isn't going to win against these other e-tickets, in my opinion. I just don't think it's going to match up. It's a great ride for what it does, but what it does isn't going to help in this tournament.
Absolutely. I don't know. We'll have to see. I have a feeling that it's not going to last very long. I don't know if it's going to have legs in this tournament, but we'll see. We'll have to find out. Now, 2020 is going to bring some interesting rankings to some of the newer attractions that might not be as popular as, say, Mickey and Minnie's and Rise of the Resistance, as well as it's going to question the fate of a few of the lower seating attractions because of the additions of these 3 big new popular rides. So, Nate, lay it on us. Tell us a little bit about some of the questionables that we're going to be looking at coming up on this selection Wednesday. And I think we've lost Nate.
I think we have lost our Nate. Kevin, but that's okay. I can do it.
No, Nate Begle is here. I am here. I'm ready and rocking and rolling here. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But yes, I will read off this full list of 2020 questionables. And Disney Dan, you maybe give off a couple of your favorites and or who you think might fall off. And then we'll pass it over to Kevin and give his opinion. But I will read off this entire list for everyone. If you look at your screen, 2020 questionables. Now, these are some attractions that have been in the brackets before and some brand new ones to this game. So we have the Magic Carpets have been on the brackets for the last 2 years. Rafiki's Planet Watch, Triceratops Spin, Finding Nemo the Musical, the Astro Orbiter, Liberty Square Riverboat, the Primeval Whirl, Prince Charming Regal Carousel, Tomorrowland Speedway, Up, A Great Bird Adventure, Main Street Vehicles, Casey Jr. Splash Zone, Tom Sawyer's Island, Canada, Far and Wide, Awesome Planet. Those 2 are new to this bracket. Beauty and the Beast Sing-Along, also new, and Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, rounding out the last of the brand new to this bracket. Voyage of the Little Mermaid, Pixar Short Film Festival, Impression de France, Reflections of China, Beauty and the Beast live on stage, and finally, Disney Junior live on stage. Disney Dan, the questionables of whether or not these should or should not be on the bracket. What are your thoughts?
Man, I wasn't even considering this kind of detailed deep dive into who's going to make it onto the brackets or not. But then Kevin and I started talking about, how people have voted in the past and how, and also new rides and how they rank and what is considered an attraction and what is just considered maybe just a movie. And all these interesting kinds of considerations went into how these brackets were seated. And Kevin, talk to me a little bit about these questionables. Why are some of these in danger of maybe not appearing on the brackets while other of them might sneak their way in?
So this is the bottom of the barrel as far as Walt Disney World is concerned. And what's going to be interesting as to whether these attractions get in are, of course, the newcomers. We have Canada Far and Wide, Awesome Planet, Beauty and the Beast Sing-Along, Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy. Those were not in play last year. And everything below that on this sheet is actually attractions that have been around forever, it seems, but have not actually been on the bracket the past 2 years. Now, look at the left side. We have attractions that have either been both years or only 1 year. What's going to be interesting to see is, are these attractions going to get on the board because they've been there before, or was their performance so bad these last 2 years that it's worth trying out one of these questionables, which is the ones that have never been on there before? If I had to guess right now, Magic Carpets has fallen on its face every single time. I think it's done. Rafiki's Planet Watch has held better standing often, and Triceratops Spin also done really, really poorly. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And not only to mention are these questionables that who's going to be on, what's also interesting is in a lot of these cases, there's going to be attractions that were there last year, there both years, that are going to be removed completely because there's 3 newcomers this year, 3 attractions that are certainly going to be on the board, which we just mentioned. So not only are we just deciding, who's going to get on, we have to eliminate 3 right off the bat because of Rise, Smugglers, and Mickey and Minnie's.
Well, Kevin, I see Primeval Whirl is here on this list, but that's a top tier coaster attraction, right? For all ages. How does it perform so poorly that it's risking elimination?
Absolutely. It is performed awfully. And in 2018, it went against Mission Space, which is not a fan favorite by any means, and it lost 79-21. This is percentage points. 79-21. Got obliterated by an attraction that is not that beloved. Then watch it go in round 1 versus Splash Mountain. We expect it to lose big, but not 94-6. That is just a margin that is going to maybe disqualify it from this year's tournament.
Strong defeat there.
So I think with these questionables, it's going to be interesting to see. But of course, we're going to want to look at the major players.
Major players, absolutely. Nate, run us through some of the attractions to watch. Some of our major players this year in the bracket.
Right, indeed. We've narrowed it down to some that really could go either way, but it's definitely some that we think they're going to rise to the top fairly quickly. Some of the 2020 predictions of attractions to watch. We have Test Track, The People Mover, fan favorite, Jungle Cruise, the Navi River Journey, Mission Space, Festival of the Lion King, and Muppet Vision 3D. Now, Disney Dan, some of these are rides, some of these are shows. Like, how do you compare a show versus a ride? Like, what could happen?
Well, I think you're pointing out a really interesting thing here, because attractions to watch, you've got shows, you've got rides. I think that some of these attractions have such a fan base and such a loving, loyal following when people are in the parks that it's going to heavily influence when they go up against otherwise beloved attractions. I think we're going to see a lot of fans turn out here kind of strong. Kevin, I know that this list is something you pulled together. These are the ones that you were super interested in keeping a close eye on during the rounds as they progress. I think you feel like some of these are going to make it pretty far. Talk to me a little bit about these and tell me kind of the interesting sort of spin you've got to how they're going to perform.
Sure. So we're looking at these attractions. They've done well before, but this year in particular, it's going to be very interesting to see. And so as I pull this up on these attractions to watch, Test Track. It's going to be interesting not only because it's been average competitive in the past few years, but it's refurbished in early 2020. So that's fresh. It's fresh in our minds as it not being here.
Just reopened right before the parks closed.
Right before the parks closed. People Mover, significant downtime before the parks closed. Jungle Cruise just had a boat sink. So I don't know if that's going to have that much impact on the vote, but it is significant news right before the park closes. And then it's Navi River Journey and Mission Space. We're going to look at these together because last year, Navi River Journey won by a mere 33 votes over Mission Space in the first round in 2019. And in 2018, Mission Space, as I mentioned, destroyed Primeval Whirl with nearly 80% of the vote. Navi River Journey was knocked out in round 1 by Living with the Land the previous year. Both attractions have a chance at making it to round 2, depending on where they're placed. Now let's look at Festival of the Lion King and Muppet Vision 3D. This was last year's heartbreaker, and it honestly upset a lot of Muppet fans. Muppet Vision 3D is very popular in their minds. Muppet Vision 3D is a fan favorite. It lost in this heartbreaker to Festival of the Lion King by 257 votes. That's just 14 percentage points in the first round. There's 2 reasons we are keeping an eye on Muppet Vision this year. First, when it was matched with Rafiki's Planet Watch in 2018, it won 88% of the vote. It lost in the next round to Soarin', but depending on matchups, we might see Muppet Vision make it to its first Sweet 16. The second reason to watch out for Muppet Vision is the Muppets have seen a huge comeback in social media presence, specifically Twitter, within the last year. It will be very interesting to see if any of the Muppet influencers are able to sway this competition, one of them probably being me.
And me.
So
and Nate.
I'm supposed to be right, and you. And
I'm
Nate.
also going to take a little bit of a plus on that one. I'm going to push the Muppets.
Sure. So it's going to be very interesting to see these major players. So I think we're coming up on the announcement of who's actually on the bracket and where. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Or
we
we're
have,
actually
but right before that, I think we should take a little bit of time and kind of evaluate what our predictions are going to be here, and some of the major players that we're going to see coming up out of each of the parks. Right. So, Nate, who do we have to keep an eye on in the Magic Kingdom? Who do you think in the Magic Kingdom is going to go pretty far?
So I think in the Magic Kingdom, and I know you asked this question to Nate, but I'm going to jump in because Nate's microphone is off. But the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, People Mover, and Splash Mountain. Notice what's not on there: Space Mountain. Space Mountain does not do as well as you might think it will,
Not nearly
for
as
whatever
beloved.
reason.
Not
It's
nearly as beloved.
maybe. I mean, I love it more than most attractions. But if you look back and we look at where is Space Mountain on these on the board, as I'm looking it up and trying to find it. Where is it? It's on here somewhere. Anyway, so as I here it is, Space Mountain. It was a 3 seed in 2018 and eliminated in the Elite 8 by Splash Mountain. That's pretty expected. Splash Mountain does really well. It was a 2 seed, but it was eliminated in the Sweet 16 in 2019. It beat Astro Orbiter, beat Grand Fiesta Tour, and then was eliminated by Expedition Everest. So, I mean, that's why Space Mountain's not up there. But these 4 right here, they could go really far. Pirates of the Caribbean,
I don't know.
goes far.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean goes far, but I think it goes far it rests its laurels on the Disneyland version. I would argue that in the Magic Kingdom, Pirates of the Caribbean is the worst of any Disney resort. But it's interesting to see how strong it performs when you ask people which pirates they prefer. They never pick the Disney World version.
Yeah, and that's why I think this year there might be a indication on the vote that you are voting not for Pirates of the Caribbean, the concept, but Pirates of the Caribbean, the Magic Kingdom version. So that might sway the vote this year. So that's interesting to look out for. But what's coming up in the next one?
Oh, and so here's what we have to look forward to with Epcot. Got
Here
4
at
attractions.
Epcot 2020 predictions. We have Spaceship Earth, Soarin', Test Track, and Frozen Ever After. Now, this is quite the eclectic collection of the top 4 in Epcot.
Yes, and this is basically all Epcot has. I really don't have much more to say than this. If I had to pick a top 4 in Epcot, this is basically it. I think I only eliminated Mission Space and the Seas, so minus the shows, but those are all questionable. So I don't have much to say on Epcot.
I'm interested to see how Spaceship Earth is going to perform this year, particularly because of its announced closure. Did a lot of people kind of cram it in there and kind of filled their heart up with Spaceship Earth to last them 2 years for their Spaceship Earth hibernation? I'm interested to see how that plays into the vote, or if it does at all.
Yeah, and in the chat on YouTube, I know this is on Twitter and Facebook as well, but if you're on the YouTube chat, I know Corvin's putting some statistics that I also have access to. And yeah, as we're looking at Epcot's a week, but we have another park, 2 more parks, and this next park
Hollywood Studios.
has a lot more.
Disney's Hollywood Studios, the top 4 to look out for here: The Rise of the Resistance, the brand new Galaxy's Edge ride, also the brand new Mickey Mouse Runaway Railway, and Tower of Terror and Rockin' Roller Coaster. Disney Dan?
Yeah, I think that we're going to be surprised to see how Runaway Railway doesn't do very well in this matchup. I think that at least most people are going to think that it's a really great attraction. They're going to watch it on YouTube. I think a lot of people are going to vote, but I think it's going to get eliminated, maybe in the second or third round. I definitely think Rise of the Resistance is one to keep an eye on, but Tower of Terror is just such a classic attraction rooted in everyone's heart and soul when it comes to Hollywood Studios. I think it's going to continue to push the boundaries and make it pretty deep into the bracket. What do you think, Kev? Who do you think is going to outperform and outshine in this park?
This is a complete wild card. I don't have much to predict here. Rock and Roller Coaster is always something to look out for, depending on who it faces. So we'll keep an eye on these, but these are pretty much what you expect. Smuggler's Run's not up there, but that's pretty obvious. So let's take a look at Animal Kingdom.
All right, moving on to the 4th and final park in Walt Disney World, Animal Kingdom. The top 4 that we have to look out for are Expedition Everest, Flight of Passage, Dinosaur, and the Navi River Journey. Now we've got those are two of the newer ones in Avatar, Pandora Land, and two roller coaster and a dark ride. What do we think, Disney Dan?
I think Expedition Everest is going to continue to impress. Kev?
Expedition Everest is the one to look out for. Again, this is a park that's very void of a lot of attractions. So Navi River Journey is technically up there, but I don't think Navi River Journey has that much of a chance, but we'll see. So we'll look out for these 16 attractions. But I think Magic Kingdom always comes out pulling the weight of the bracket. We split this year's bracket into 4 regions. Exploration, education, imagination, inspiration. These are by name only, but it'll be a good way to track. So Dan, are we ready to see who's on the board and who's facing who?
I think we're ready to dive deep into the exploration region and start to take a look at how the bracket's going to line itself up. Nate, you want to announce our first matchup?
Absolutely. Now, in round 1, in the regional section of the regional round 1 in exploration, we have the first matchup is the number 1 seed Haunted Mansion versus Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, which is sitting at a 16 seed. Disney Dan, what do we think?
Yeah, I think that this is a no-brainer. I think that Haunted Mansion is going to take a strong lead. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how a new contender like Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy does. And I wonder how this is going to affect its seedings in following tournaments. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, the real big thing to look at here is Lightning McQueen. Not because it's going to be Haunted Mansion, because it won't, but because this probably means that Magic Carpets of Aladdin or Astro Orbiter or some of those 15, 16 seeds last year aren't going to be on the board this year. So it's pretty interesting to have that. Haunted Mansion versus Lightning McQueen is going to, obviously Haunted Mansion's going to win. 2-time champion Haunted Mansion. What we're going to look for as we go down this list is who is Haunted Mansion going to beat. And remember, to those that are just now joining us, we are going to be voting starting around 8 on this specific region, and then the other regions will open afterwards. So yeah, so depending on who else is in this bracket, Haunted Mansion, might have a harder chance. You look at past years, Haunted Mansion in the first round beat Monsters Inc. Laugh 4. In the second round, beat Journey into Imagination with Figment, beat Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. This is not a very hard track that it had to go to get to the Elite 8 last year. And then it beat Flight of Passage. That's a little more difficult, not really. And then, of course, People Mover and Splash Mountain. Those are really good wins. But, it also faced Splash Mountain in 2018. It's going to be difficult to decide whether Haunted Mansion is going to pull this off a third year. But it has the best chance out of everybody based on history. So I guess we can keep going down the list, Nate.
All right. Now, for the second matchup, we have a little bit more of a close matchup. We have the number 8 seed, Navi River Journey, versus the number 9 seed, Mission: Space. Now, when it gets down to these middle seeds, that's where it can really get exciting, and things could be upset, or it could go either way. Disney Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, just my gut says that Mission Space is more thrilling and fun. I think that Navi River Journey has let a lot of people down in terms of how short the ride is, how long the waits were, and I think more people have been on Mission Space. So I think Mission Space is going to do pretty well, but it'll be interesting to see how did these attractions fare in previous matchups, Kev?
Well, this is a rematch. I don't know if anybody noticed, but this is the exact same matchup in 2019, although I believe they were switched to where Mission Space was 8 and Navi River Journey was 9. So this is pretty obvious. I mean, Navi River Journey won, so they moved up a seed, and Mission Space lost, so they moved down. But it's interesting to see this matchup again. Remember, this is the one that lost by less than 50 votes, I think. So this could go either way. And of course, it's not going to dethrone Haunted Mansion in the second round, most likely. But it's an interesting matchup nonetheless, because depending on how it does, it'll be moved to a different part of the board and might be able to gain some more momentum. So I guess we're going to keep going down the list. I want to know who the 5 and 12 seed in this region are.
All right, the next matchup, the number 5 seed in Magic Kingdom, Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin versus the 12 seed, another Toy Story themed Alien Swirling Saucers, the new ride in the Toy Story themed land in Hollywood Studios. Disney Dan, two Toy Stories matched together. What could happen?
I think these are both really great family-friendly rides. I think that the fresh aesthetic and Instagrammability of alien swirling saucers is going to give it a lot more credit than I think people. Think this is going to be a tighter race than people are going to think. I mean, I know that the vote's probably going to sway towards Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, of course, but I think alien swirling saucers is a little bit of swirling sauce left in its saucers. Kev, what do you think?
Absolutely. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin is one of my favorite attractions for some reason, and I have no reason to say that other than I just enjoy it, but it's outdated. It's really outdated. And if the question is, where do you want to get your techno Toy Story music? Where do you want to hear Randy Newman played on a synchronizer or synthesizer? Then you and you want to choose between them, I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. I imagine just based off of the nature, it's a shooting dark ride. It has the advantage. It's done well in past tournaments. It is a 5 seed, but it's going to be difficult. So it's really and depending on who wins this one is going to probably depend on who goes to the Sweet 16, because next up we have our 4 and 13 seed. And depending on who this is, depends on whether one of those could actually make it past the second round.
So yeah, now things are getting really interesting here with the number 4 seed from Hollywood Studios, Aerosmith's Rockin' Roller Coaster versus the number 13 seed, the Monorail. Now, Disney Dan, the Monorail, does that count as an attraction?
Absolutely counts as an attraction. It's beloved. People ride it all the time. It loops through enough of Epcot that it has a narration. It has a queue. Absolutely, it's an attraction. No, absolutely no doubt. That said, I don't know. Both of these attractions are kind of based off of getting you somewhere. You got to get somewhere in a hurry. But I think that Rocket Roller Coaster is going to take this one, no question. Kevin, what do you think?
Rock and Roller Coaster is the most most consistently underrated outside of Expedition Everest in any of these competitions, in my opinion. And based off of history, let's look in 2018. It was an 8 seed, which meant it had to face Splash Mountain in round 2, where it lost. Splash Mountain would go on to the Final Four that year, losing to Haunted Mansion. And then the next year, it was, because of that loss, it was only bumped up to a 5 seed. And then was eliminated again in round 2 after beating It's Tough to Be a Bug, but then eliminated by Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in a close matchup, 58-42. So again, we're looking at this from a very interesting perspective. Rock and Roller Coaster is a 4 seed, but I think it's just as good as any 2 or 3 seed. It all depends on those matchups.
All right, Nate, what's up?
And I should mention it's one retweet from Aerosmith away from winning the whole thing.
That's the truth. That is the absolute truth. Nate, what are we going to see in our next matchup?
Steven Tyler could have that one all wrapped up around his little ring finger. All right, the next matchup we have is the number 6 seed from Animal Kingdom, Dinosaur, versus from Magic Kingdom, the 11 seed, the Mad Tea Party. Dark Dinosaur time travel versus spinning around and getting nauseous in a teacup. Disney Dan, what do we think are the odds between these two?
I think both of these attractions are equally terrifying, so I don't really know in my heart which one I would vote for. As a father, Mad Tea Party is one of my greatest fears now. But Dinosaur at the same time, I don't know what it is about that giant red T-Rex. It's not a T-Rex, but I can never remember what it's actually called. It scares the pants off me every single time. So, in my opinion, I think Dinosaur's probably going to take it. But who knows? Everyone loves the Tea Party. Kev, are you a teacup fan?
Absolutely. I love the teacups, having not ridden them in probably 15, 20 years. That said, I think that Dinosaur has a good chance here. In 2018, it was a 5 seed and it was eliminated in round 2 by Carousel Progress. So the thrill of it's not doing much when it comes down to the dark ride aspect. But it was then a 5 seed again the next year, where it was eliminated in round 2 by Midway Mania, which is somewhat surprising. It was a somewhat close race, but it did end up losing. So we have Dinosaur, an attraction that was a 5 seed, lost round 2, 5 seed, lost round 2. We really do expect, if you're going to move up or stay the same, that you make it into the Sweet 16 at some point. So it got moved back to a 6 seed. Mad Tea Party does well. It holds its own for what it is, especially in comparison to the other spinning rides at the Magic Kingdom. It was eliminated in round 1 by Space Mountain in 2018, 92-8 though. and then lost to Spaceship Earth 81-19. These are percentage points again in round one in 2019. So I don't think it stands a chance, but it's not hated by any means. It's iconic.
Nate, who we have up next?
All right, in keeping with the theme that it seems like newish and exciting versus nostalgia, we have the number 3 seed from Epcot, Spaceship Earth, versus the number 14 seed, also from Epcot, The Seas, with Nemo and Friends. Now, Disney Dan, again, it seems the pattern here is newish and exciting versus nostalgia. What could happen with this big of a gap in seed?
I think that if this face-off was in the 2021 bracket, we would have some very interesting results, particularly because now Spaceship Earth is closed, and the way that they're redirecting the park traffic, you're either being funneled directly into Test Track or you're being funneled directly into the Seas. And so I think the Seas is going to get a lot more foot traffic than it might have been used to, which is good because I think that it's got a lot of educational fun entertainment. It's got some great tubes with some wacky saltwater fish. It's got some manatees. I think the Seas is a really great attraction, but this year, I don't know if it has enough strength to rest off of Spaceship Earth, the idea of it being gone. So I think Spaceship Earth and the love for it will continue to persist. Kev?
I disagree. I think the Seas is not going to be looked at fondly, especially because of its increased foot traffic. And also, this is the Seas with Nemo and Friends. I don't believe that people consider the entire pavilion the Seas. I mean, Turtle Talk with Crush is separated on the bracket even. So the Seas with Nemo and Friends is mostly referring to the ride, I believe, and the ride is very short. And yeah, so anyways, I don't know. I don't think
it's a big blue world, Kev. Give it a little slack.
Yeah, well, Finding Nemo the musical is going to be on this board somewhere as well, hopefully. So that'll be there as well. Spaceship Earth was a 5 seed in 2018 and eliminated in the Elite Eight by the People Mover. It was a 2 seed the next year, eliminated in the Elite Eight by Splash Mountain. But it got knocked back to a 3 seed, which makes me believe Rise of the Resistance is going to be either a 2 seed or a 1 seed.
Can't wait to see. Nate, what do we got up next?
It's all getting really exciting here. All right, our second to last matchup here in the Explorational Regional Round 1, we have the number 7 seed, Journey of the Little Mermaid, versus the number 10 seed, Frozen Ever After. All right, now we're getting serious, boys. We have 2 princesses going at it. Disney Dan, what do we think?
I think that we're going to see a battle of the generations with this one. I mean, you have the beloved Ariel from the 90s. You've got the beloved Frozen from the 2000s. I think that we're going to have some very interesting face-offs with the millennials versus the Gen Xers. And because at the end of the day, they're both, silly princess animatronic rides. So I think it's going to boil down to who is loved more, Ariel or Elsa. What do you think, Kev?
Frozen Ever After is in the carcass of a much better ride, so that's always going to hurt it among fans. Whether you like Under the Sea or not, you'll vote for it just because you're mad that Maelstrom is gone. And that's what we've seen year after year with Frozen Ever After. It was a 2 seed in 2018, vastly overranked, eliminated in round 2. And then it was a 7 seed the next year, eliminated again in round 2. So, it's not, I don't think it has much of a chance. I think, even though this is going to be a close matchup, I think Under the Sea is going to run away with it.
Ooh, time will tell. Nate, who are the final 2 in our exploration region?
All right, rounding out the regional round 1 of Exploration, we have the number 2 seed, Expedition Everest roller coaster, versus the number 15 seed, Finding Nemo the musical. Disney Dan, back to you against a ride, a roller coaster, a thrilling, exciting roller coaster versus a Broadway-esque style beloved musical. What could happen between these two?
All I have to say about Finding Nemo the musical is that at least all the animatronics work in it. Kev, what do you think?
Expedition Everest is the most underrated attraction. It was a 5 seed somehow in 2018. It made it to the Sweet 16. It was a 6 seed the next year, despite doing better than that, and was eliminated in the Elite Eight. It deserves a 2 seed. I think it's going to go far. I think it could. I think in a matchup against Haunted Mansion, it could win. It's never faced Haunted Mansion before. It lost to the People Mover. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but that's this region. That's exploration. So we need to go on to our second region.
Yep, time to look at
All
this.
right.
Is Nate,
Sorry, go.
cue
No,
us up.
all right. We're here to round one in the regional. We are going to look deep into our imaginations. And the first battle is the number 1 seed, Splash Mountain, versus the number 16 seed, Awesome Planet. Disney Dan, what do we think about this one? No brainer?
Well, I think that Awesome Planet is great. It's mislabeled here, which is it's an Awesome Planet from Epcot, the new movie found in the land. I had a chance to see it. I know that you saw it, Kevin. Do you think that it has strong enough message to dethrone Splash Mountain?
No. It does not. It has no chance. It's fun. This is a very boring matchup to me. Splash Mountain was eliminated in the Final Four by Haunted Mansion 2018. Eliminated in the finals the next year. It's just doing better. Who knows? Splash Mountain could win this year.
You could take it all home,
especially with Haunted Mansion's downtime. I mean, Splash Mountain has scheduled maintenance in the winter typically, but Haunted Mansion was down quite significantly towards the end. Whether that has an impact or not, we don't know. It's going to beat Awesome Planet, though. I can tell you that for sure.
Absolutely, Nate.
All right, the next matchup we have the number 8 seed Muppet Vision 3D versus the number 9 seed, the Three Caballeros Grand Fiesta Tour. Now, not to sway anybody's votes, but I'm pretty sure we know what the three of us are going to vote for in this. 8 and 9 seed, it's this one that it always gets really close and tenuous. What could happen? Disney Dan, Muppets versus the Grand Fiesta Tour.
Yeah, I think that both of these rides have a pretty solid fan base of people who love them and also love the characters that they're based on. I think this is going to be that kind of Frozen Ever After versus Little Mermaid thing where it's going to boil down to a popularity contest. But I think that the Muppet lovers on Twitter, three of us representing right here, are going to come out in force. Kev?
I disagree with the term Muppet lovers, but agree with the sentiment. I think that this is a situation where Muppet Vision is going up against Grand Fiesta Tour. Grand Fiesta Tour is one of the most significantly curious attractions, I would say. It has a very small fan base, but it serves as this kind of vanilla placeholder. This vanilla placeholder, what I mean is last year, Grand Fiesta Tour went against Country Bear Jamboree in round 1 and 1. I think Country Bear Jamboree is one of those attractions that has a super huge fan base that really, really loves it, but has a second fan base or hate base, I guess, that really doesn't like it. So Grand Fiesta Tour stands as this kind of vanilla placeholder where people that don't like the alternative will vote for. Muppet Vision's the same way. Some people don't like Muppet Vision. They think it's outdated. They think it's in a park that's currently undergoing a lot of change and that it deserves to be changed too. So it'll be interesting. Grand Fiesta Tour dethroning a very similar in style fan favorite Country Bear last year. I think Grand Fiesta Tour has a good chance if some of the social media Muppet Vision people do not step in. And that's what's so interesting about this tournament as a whole.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this face-off goes. Be interested to see who wins. Nate, who do we have up next?
All right, the next matchup we have the number 5 seed, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train versus the number 12 seed, the Kali River Rapids. All right, a quick little roller coaster versus a water ride. Disney Dan, what do you think's going to happen with this one?
I think that there's a lot of stigma with the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in terms of you need a fast pass or you're just not going to be able to ride it. But then on the flip side of it, the Kali River Rapids, I don't think I've been on it since Animal Kingdom opened, if I'm going to be entirely honest. Because, water rides, they're just, especially uncontrollable spinning tube-based water rides, never really a strong thing for me. Kev, where do you think the votes are going to go with this one?
I think Kali River Rapids is one of the most hated attractions in all of Walt Disney World. Unlike its counterpart in Disney's California Adventure or Disney California Adventure, which actually adds to the, aesthetic of the land that it's in, that area that's very, nature, a national park that the Grizzly Falls where it is. That actually adds a lot to that area. This one doesn't add anything to the beautiful aesthetic of Animal Kingdom. It stands as a off-the-shelf water ride. So I don't think it's going to do very well. That said, as a 13 seed, it did get to round 2 against Expedition Everest in 2018, and then, of course, lost. And then it was eliminated in round 1 by Kilimanjaro Safaris, its neighbor, 82-18 in round 1 last year. So that's Cali River Rapids. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I agree, has a terrible stigma around it. It's a fun, short ride that, again, is carrying the back. Once Tron opens, I think it's going to be much more favorable. Wait times are going to go down. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Seven Dwarfs was eliminated in round 2 by Spaceship Earth. And then the next year, it was eliminated in the Sweet 16 by the Haunted Mansion, which is a powerhouse. So you can't fault it there, but I think this is Seven Dwarfs easy. After that, I don't know. Let's find out who Seven Dwarfs might have to go against when they make it to the round, if they make it to round 2.
Nate?
All right, the next matchup, we have the number 4 seed Toy Story Midway Mania versus the number 13 seed Enchanted Tales with Belle. Now, again, this is more of like a ride, an immersive, interactive ride versus kind of like a show. Disney Dan, what could happen with this one?
Actually, I think that both of them have the same amount of immersion interactivity. If you think about it, Midway Mania is essentially an interactive game, where Enchanted Tales with Belle is similarly an interactive storytelling thing. So, but that being said, the only cool thing Enchanted Tales with Belle has is that mirror, and Toy Story Midway Mania, I'm not really sure if that is... is hated enough because of the wait times and like kind of the difficulty of getting on, because the fast passes are always gone for it. People want to be on that ride 24/7. Meanwhile, you can get in Enchanted Bells any day of the week. Kev, Enchanted Tale with Bells have a chance?
Enchanted Tales with Belle, it's one of the only attractions that I haven't done. And so I can't speak to its quality. I don't think there's any stigma around it at all. I think it serves its purpose. I think a lot of the parents really enjoy it. I know it has a few cool animatronic effects that really elevated it. But yeah, when it's going against Midway Mania, which for some reason performs really well despite my ambivalence towards it. Not that anybody takes my opinion into account, but it was eliminated in the Sweet 16 by Space Mountain. It was a 2 seed. It was overranked in 2018. It should have made it to the Elite Eight. Then as a 4 seed, it was eliminated in Sweet 16 by who did I say was eliminated by? Did I say Stitch's Great Escape? By Space Mountain. And then it was eliminated by Splash Mountain the next year. So I think this gives Seven Dwarfs its best chance yet to get to the Sweet 16. And as it did last year.
Nate, who do we have up in the next bracket?
All right, for this next round, to keep our imaginations here in the Magic Kingdom, we're going with the number 6 seed Enchanted Tiki Room versus the number 11 seed, the Walt Disney World Railroad. Now, these are two classic attractions in the Magic Kingdom. Disney Dan, what do we think?
I don't think the Walt Disney World Railroad stands a chance in this matchup. It's been closed now for quite some time. I miss it a great deal. But then at the same time, the Disneyland Railroad is better, if I have to make an argument there. So I think the Walt Disney World Railroad just won't hold its own. I think it might end up facing elimination in future years because of how poorly I think it's going to perform versus the Enchanted Tiki Room in this matchup. Kev, do you think is it going to get just completely housed?
Yeah, Tiki Room is going to win in my view, but it has a shot because Tiki Room doesn't do that well to begin with. It was eliminated by the Jungle Cruise in round 2. I think the Jungle Cruise lost in the matchup after that in 2018. Then the next year in round 2, it was eliminated by Spaceship Earth, but by a huge margin. So it's expected that it would lose to Spaceship Earth, but not by as much as it did. And it beat Hall of Presidents, which it's the same. When you have two attractions going against the same type of ride, it's hard to make a determination of how that translates to a different ride type. So I think Tiki Room's going to win, but I don't think Tiki Room is going to go very far. But it's time to figure out who will Tiki Room face if it wins. Let's go down the bracket, Nate.
All right, if Tiki Room wins that matchup, we are still going to stick our imaginations with the Magic Kingdom, the number 3 seed Jungle Cruise versus the number 14 seed Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Disney Dan, do we think this is a no-brainer? Or what's happening? We got nostalgia versus, it's still nostalgia versus nostalgia. One's just an older ride.
Yeah, I think that this will be... I know the Jungle Cruise has done really well, but I don't know how well it's going to do versus Winnie the Pooh. Kev, what are the breakdown? I think that Winnie the Pooh is going to get a decent amount of votes against Jungle Cruise, don't you think?
I'm not too sure. It was eliminated. Winnie the Pooh was eliminated in round one by Peter Pan's Flight in 2018, 74 to 26 percentage points. Of these points, it was eliminated in round one the very next year by Under the Sea, so 53 to 47. Very close matchup. It might have been able to pull it off, but didn't. So Jungle Cruise has not really had that many matchups to base its success off of. It was hugely overranked in the first tournament in 2018. It was a 1 seed. It didn't deserve it and was eliminated in the Sweet 16. It was also eliminated in the Sweet 16 the second year after being moved back to a 6 seed. So this is a huge jump for the Jungle Cruise, and that's only because it almost dethroned Spaceship Earth with a vote of 56 to 44. So if you think about that, there was an alternative last year where the Jungle Cruise could have beat a Spaceship Earth, and that's what knocked it back up to a 3 seed. It's going to beat Winnie the Pooh. I think it's going to beat the Tiki Room, and then we're going to look at who is it going to be on the bottom half of this region. So, Nate, what's coming up?
All right. After the next matchup, we have the old versus the new, the number 7 seed, the brand new Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway versus the number 10 seed, the Magic Kingdom Classic Country Bear Jamboree. Now, a 7 seed versus a 10 seed is close in any game, but this brand new with Mickey Ride versus a classic Country Bear attraction in Magic Kingdom, Disney Dan, what do you think could happen?
This is a rough go for Runaway Railway, facing up against Country Bear Jamboree. Haven't been open for just a few weeks, and also with such a beloved attraction that has a pretty strong fan base. There's a chance, I think, that Mickey's Runaway Railway will win, but I think that the margin was going to be super small and affect how it's going to rank in following years. It's a shame that it went up against such a strong contender because I don't know if it's going to win with such a strong lead to keep it highly ranked in future years. Kev?
Country Bear Jamboree is a fan favorite, is what we keep saying, but is it? It was eliminated in round one twice in a row. 2018, it lost 52 to 48. To what? To the Seas with Nemo and friends. That is insane. That should have been a blowout if this is truly a fan favorite to another vanilla placeholder. This is this phenomenon, and then it loses, as I mentioned earlier, to Grand Fiesta Tour 55 to 45. Close races, but is it going to be enough? It's not. In my view, I think Runaway Railway is going to run away with this competition. Nate, who are they going to face if they get to the next part?
All right, rounding out the regional round one in the Imagination bracket, we have the number 2 seed in Animal Kingdom, Flight of versus the number 15 seed, Beauty and the Beast, SingAlong. Now, by the numbers, one would think this is a no-brainer, but Disney Dan, what do we think? It's, again, ride versus show.
Yeah, this show has been running for who knows how long, I think over 10 years. And it's just tired. It's tired. It needs to go. And against something so fresh and beloved as Flight of Passage, I don't know. But this is Kev. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Beauty and the Beast SingAlong is a new contender in this bracket.
It is. It's a new attraction. It wasn't open last year, but it's divisive. Some people hate it. It's not going to beat Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage has a pretty strong kind of fan base. It's great with word of mouth, very good for the general public. It's split the hardcore Disney fans because I think it's a simulator, but I think it's the best done simulator I've ever been on, and it's going to definitely win against Beauty and the Beast SingAlong, which has split animation fans for its playful revisionist for no purpose. And I go into this, we watched it together actually when we were at Epcot, this Beauty and the Beast SingAlong, and we've heard it does LeFou's going to come in and do all these things, and I didn't really care until we watched it, and I was like, that was completely useless. So I don't think it's going to do very well. But that's it for the Imagination region round one. If you look at this, Splash Mountain has a great chance of winning, and I think they have an even better chance of getting to the Final Four, knowing that Flight of Passage is their contender, and I think they are going to beat Flight of Passage as easily as Haunted Mansion did, should they meet in the Elite Eight. So let's go ahead and go on to the next region.
All right, we have explored our imagination. Now it's time to learn some stuff in the Education Regional Round 1. Now, our first matchup, we have the number 1 seed, the a new attraction to this bracket, the Rise of the Resistance, versus the number 16 seed, Prince Charming's Regal Carousel. Disney Dan. What are we thinking?
Looks like the people voted, and the people voted that Rise of the Resistance is a 1-seat attraction. And having been on it, I completely agree. Although I think that it's not going to compete as strongly against some of the beloved attractions, such as Down the Line. I don't think it's a top contender, but I think that it's going to easily take out the carousel, despite the carousel being such a core attraction and in almost every promo video of Magic Kingdom since it was built. Kev, what do you think? Rise of the Resistance, is it going to go far?
It's overranked. It should be a 3-seed, and I don't know why it's ranked so highly. It might even lose to the carousel just based off of people. I think it has a large within the fan base who is the core audience that's voting for this. This is not sports. Any upset that comes is going to be planned. There are going to be people that just would rather vote for something classic rather than this new attraction that had this whole boarding group debacle. It's an IP, and it stands for today's era. And with so many people wanting to go back to the nostalgia of the parks back in the day, it's going to be interesting for sure. I don't think it's going to lose in the first round, but when you put it up against Festival of the Lion King, you put it up against Flight of Passage, or just say, sorry, Flight of Passage, not Festival of the Lion King. You put it up against Splash Mountain, who knows where it'll go. I think it would beat Festival of the Lion King for the record.
Nate, who's up next?
Well, speaking of Festival of the Lion King, our next matchup is the number 8 seed versus the number 8 seed Festival of the Lion King versus the number 9 seed in the education round, not the imagination round, Journey into Your Imagination. Now, what do we think, Disney Dan?
Well, I'm not really sure about this one. Both of these rides and attractions, I don't know. It's really going to depend. I think it's a complete toss-up. Kev, what do the numbers say? What do you think is going to happen here?
Journey into Imagination stands no chance. Festival of the Lion King is going to run away with this. Festival of the Lion King was underranked in 2018. 13 seed got bumped to a 3 seed for some reason and eliminated in round 2. But it did beat Muppet Vision, and that's what we're looking at here. Journey into Imagination is a hated ride with Figment. The original was so beloved that the third iteration of the attraction is just hated. It doesn't do well. It was eliminated in round 2 and eliminated in round 2 years in a row. Maybe it'll make it to round 2. I'm not too sure. My money's on Festival of the Lion King.
Absolutely.
Because it is a fantastic show that is beloved.
Nate, who do we have up next?
All right, up next in the educational regional round 1, we have the number 5 seed, Space Mountain versus the number 12 seed, the Hall of Presidents. Disney Dan, high-speed roller coaster versus a 30 minutes show about the America in nice air-conditioned walls. What do we think?
I'm more fascinated to see who is going to vote for Hall of Presidents. Not so, just because I don't believe that people love this ride or really care for this ride. I'm surprised it's done so well and is ranked as seated so high. Kev, what do we have how bad is Space Mountain going to cream Hall of Presidents?
Space Mountain is underranked in this tournament, and the Hall of Presidents is overranked. Remember, Space Mountain is one of those e-tickets that doesn't get enough attention, in my view, and I think in the right tournament, it could go very far. Hall of Presidents is another attraction. It's an attraction that, in this case, is a float. It floats. We don't really know how to rank it. In 2018, it was eliminated in round 1 by Frozen Ever After at a 15 seed, which means it went against a 2 seed, 67-33. That's not a big enough margin. We thought it did really well. So in the next year, it was a 10 seed. It was eliminated in round 1 though by Tiki Room by a wider margin than it lost to Frozen Ever After. So we don't even know where Hall of Presidents ranks in the minds of fans. But I would imagine that a 12 seed is about right, and so it's going to lose.
All right, Nate, who do we have up next?
All right, for the next matchup, we have the number 4 seed, the classic Carousel of Progress, versus the number 13 seed, the Indiana Jones Stunt Show. One of the last standing original attractions in Disney's Hollywood Studios versus a classic in Magic Kingdom. Disney Dan, this is a big seed spread, but what do we think?
Yeah, an original Hollywood Studios attraction versus an attraction that Walt declared must stay in the parks forever, right? So I don't know. I don't think Indiana Jones has much of a chance. I think Carousel of Progress is going to run home with this. Kev?
Absolutely. I don't have much more to say on this matchup. Carousel of Progress is going to do great.
All right, moving down to the next section of the bracket. Nate?
Boom. All right. Number 6 seed, Test Track versus the number 11 seed, Goofy's Barnstormer. Two high-speed roller coaster-esque rides. Disney Dan, what do we think?
I think that Test Track will hold its own in this face-off pretty easily. I don't think that Goofy's Barnstormer has enough appeal. I think it's a kid's roller coaster. Test Track is going to take it home every single day. Kev?
Agreed. I don't have anything to say about this. Test Track wins. It's Epcot's only e-ticket outside of Soarin' that gets people excited, that people actually think is good. I know they like the first iteration better. It's going to win. Barnstormer doesn't have a chance. It's another one of those attractions we just don't know how to place.
Absolutely. Nate, who's facing off next?
Short and sweet, gotta love it, boys. All right, the next matchup we're in the Magic Kingdom again. The number 3 seed, Big Thunder Mountain versus the number 14 seed, Swiss Family Treehouse. Two classic Magic Kingdom attractions. Disney Dan, big spread, but still, nostalgia versus nostalgia. What do we think?
I think Big Thunder Mountain is king. It will reign king, and it will continue to do well. It's really a great coaster. Kev?
Yeah, Big Thunder Mountain does well. I think that its Disneyland counterpart gives it a lot of similar to Pirates of the Caribbean. It helps, but I think it'll beat Swiss Family Robinson every day. Swiss Family Robinson, another one of these attractions, 7 seed, then a 12 seed, now a 14 seed. It's hard to lock down versus Big Thunder, which is a 3 seed, then a 4 seed, then a 3 seed, much more tight. So who would they? I guess we're going to go down to who they would be facing in the Sweet 16 should any of those 4 attractions win.
Nate?
All right, the next matchup we have a close-in seed, the number 7, Dumbo the Flying Elephant versus the number 10 seed, Smuggler's Run. All right, again, classic versus brand new. Disney Dan, what do we think?
I think that Smuggler's Run is kind of a little overrated. I don't know how it's particularly ranked here, but I don't think it's going to fare well against Dumbo. I think that Dumbo is a strong contender and has been a beloved classic for many years. Kev, how has Dumbo done in the past versus what we predict Smuggler's Run to do this year?
Dumbo's actually made it to round 2 before, so that's why it's ranked higher here. I think that Smuggler's Run is actually underranked versus Rise of the Resistance, which is overranked. So this is going to be a matchup to watch. This could be a 10 seed upsetting a 7 seed easily.
Let's see who they're going to face off against in the next round.
All right, finishing up the Education Regional Round 1, we have the number 2 seed, the People Mover, versus the number 15 seed, American Adventure. Again, classic attraction versus a show. Disney Dan, what do we think?
I'm so American that they should call the American Adventure the People Mover, because that's how beautiful that ride is. I don't care what people say. I'll still go sit in it and listen to the voices of liberty any day of the week. That said, though, People Mover is just, knockout strong contender. Kev, how strong is the People Mover?
It's strong. It does well. It's a 2 seed here. It got knocked down from a 1 seed the previous year. It was eliminated in the final 4, but Rise of the Resistance is what took its place. So it could do just as well, if not better, than some of these 1 seeds. It's definitely going to be an American Adventure, no question.
All right, perfect. And now for the final region in our bracket for Inspiration. Nate, roll us in.
All right, here to inspire us in the final region of round 1, we have the first matchup, the number 1 seed, the Twilight Zone's Tower of Terror, versus the number 16 seed, Tomorrowland Speedway. Again, these matchups seem like they're no-brainers, but Disney Dan, what do we think?
I think that the Tower of Terror is it's just going to dominate like it always does. I don't even remember what it lost to last year. I don't think it made into the final 4, but I think it's done really well consistently, and I think it's going to deliver strong numbers this year as well. Kev?
Absolutely. I don't have much more to add. Tower of Terror was a 2 seed last year, did better than it did when it was a 1 seed because it avoided Haunted Mansion. That's why when we talk about these matchups, we look to see who are they going to face. That's why we're spending so much time doing this, because you have them as a 1 seed, they go up against the Haunted Mansion that year, but then the next year they're a 2 seed, and then they don't have to face the Haunted Mansion, but they are eventually eliminated by Splash Mountain in a very close race. They're a 1 seed this year. They're going to go far. Watch out for Tower of Terror.
Nate, who's up
Let's
next?
see who they're going to face.
All right, next up, we have the number 8 seed, Kilimanjaro Safari, versus the number 9 seed, PhilharMagic. Two very different types of attractions. Disney Dan.
Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be one of those tight races just because of how they've done previously. That said, I think Kilimanjaro Safaris has a beloved spot in a lot of people's hearts compared to PhilharMagic, which I don't know. If you're comparing seeing beautiful live animals to seeing an animatronic duck's butt wiggle, I don't think that's going to give it any strength. Kev.
It was eliminated. Both of these attractions were eliminated in round 2, which is why they're 8 and 9 seeds. We're going to figure out. So they both made it past round 1. I don't know. I think Kilimanjaro Safaris is going to take the cake here. I really do enjoy Kilimanjaro Safaris personally. I think it does a lot. Animal Kingdom, especially because there's not that many attractions there. PhilharMagic gets lost in the mix in its own park. I think Safaris wins every day. Let's go on to see who's next, Nate.
All
5
right.
and 12 seeds.
Battling next, the number 5 seed, Soarin', versus the number 12 seed, Turtle Talk with Crush. Disney Dan.
Boy, both of these are just full of educational kinds of experiences. Though at the end of the day, I think that Soarin' is just, can't be beat. Love all them smells. Right, Kev?
Yep, they're going to beat Turtle Talk, but Soren's going to be interesting to watch. We're going to go ahead and figure out who they're going to face because Soren doesn't do that hot when it comes to the next few rounds. So, Nate, who's Soren going to face?
All right. After Soarin' versus Turtle Talk with Crush, we have the number 4 seed, the classic Star Tours, versus the number 13 seed, It's Tough to Be a Bug. Two kind of 3D-esque attractions. Disney Dan, what do we think?
Yeah, I think Star Tours is going to. I mean, the love of Star Tours and how it's still, that connection to the original trilogy. It's going to keep it going strong year after year. Kev?
Star Tours does surprisingly well in these tournaments, so it's definitely going to win this first round in my view.
All right, Nate, what's up next?
All right, now we're back to the Magic Kingdom with the number 6 seed, Peter Pan's Flight, versus the number 11 seed, Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor. Classic ride, long wait times all the time versus a little interactive show. Disney Dan, what do we think?
Yeah, I think the Peter Pan's Flight is consistently overranked. I don't think it's that great of a ride. I think the queue is better than the ride. I think Kev shares my sentiment. Kev?
Yeah, Peter Pan's Flight is going to dominate here in my view, but they're going to get knocked out pretty quickly. But who is going to knock them out is the question. Let's see who is next, Nate.
All right, coming up next, we have the number 3 seed, Slinky Dog Dash, versus the number 14 seed, Up, a Great Bird Adventure. Again, a roller coaster ride versus a show. Disney Dan.
Yeah, I think that Slinky Dog, despite losing its tail a few times, has a strong bite. Kev?
Slinky Dog does great. Slinky Dog had a really bad rep when it opened as the only kind of major attraction when Toy Story Land, but now that all attention has turned to Galaxy's Edge, Toy Story Land looks to be the perfect addition as they'd originally planned to that park. So I think Slinky Dog's going to go far. Who are they going to face if they make it to the Sweet 16?
All
or who
right,
could they face?
If Slinky Dog makes it to the through, it's going to go up against either the number 7 seed, It's a Small World, versus the number 10 seed, Living with the Land. So these are two boat rides versus each other. Disney Dan, what do we think?
Boy, it's going to be the battle of the boats, that's for sure. But I think no matter what, It's a Small World, it's going to come out pretty strong. Kev?
Yeah, It's a Small World is going. I think it could win, but I don't know if it was eliminated in round 1 last year. We're basing that ranking off of Sweet 16 the previous year, and It's a Small World has a great Disneyland fan base. But again, this is another one of those. It's that Pirates, Big Thunder. It's better in Disneyland, but it's here and it gets that help. So maybe it'll help there. So who would they face if they win?
All right, rounding out the final region of inspiration in regional round 1 will be the ones we talked about a little bit earlier, the number 2 seed Pirates of the Caribbean versus the number 15 seed Primeval Whirl. Gentlemen, we had a lot of thoughts about them earlier in the broadcast, but what do we think about these two versus each other? Disney Dan.
Yeah, I think that Primeval Whirl has just been down too much. It causes too many back problems. I don't think we're going to see it take any kind of strong spot. Kev?
I agree. Pirates of the Caribbean is definitely going to win here, and Primeval Whirl has never done well in these tournaments. But that's the entire bracket we're seeing now, and we're going to really dive deep. But voting's about to open. Dan, when are we going to get the votes open for round 1?
Round 1 votes are about to open in literally 30 seconds when I hit the button. Are you ready, guys? We're going to head it.
Okay, so before you do this, we're going to be looking at only region 1 first. Is that correct? Or are we
Yep.
looking at all of them
Yep.
at once?
At 8:15, we're going to drop region 1, and then every 15 minutes for the next hour, we're going to drop the subsequent regions. So keep an eye on Disney Dan's Twitter. And after, of course, everything's released, there's going to be one pinned tweet that is going to have links to all 4 of the threads. So, if you have any problems finding them all, check in there. Are you ready?
We are ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready to see who is going to come out on top in this first hour.
I believe we were literally all born ready for this moment.
So at this time,
Okay, so
if you guys want to head over to my the Disney Dan Twitter page, from there,
if you go to @DisneyDan on Twitter, and you do have to have a Twitter account to vote, that's the way that it is. Unfortunately, it's necessary, but we do get to see them in live time, which is amazing. So we're going to get to see them update in live time, and everyone's going to be able to see them. Of course, not until afterwards. So as we're looking at this, can we pull up the brackets for round one region exploration? As we're looking at this, we're going to look at Haunted Mansion versus Lightning McQueen. Maybe don't go all the way back, because then you'll have to go. Oh, that works as well. You're right. My fault. Haunted Mansion, Lightning McQueen Racing Academy, 1 seed versus 16. We expect Haunted Mansion to do well, but depending on how well they do, this might determine. We already have 33 votes in, and they are winning 94-6. That's 94% to 6%. I'm just going down and reading these initial results. In the second, Navi River Journey versus Mission Space. Remember, this is the matchup we are looking for. We are looking at this matchup. It's extremely important to see who is winning. Because this is a rematch from the previous year. I believe that Mission Space is going to come out on top, but look at that. With 26 votes, that's not a lot at all so far, but it's 50-50. We have a neck-and-neck race. Next up, we have Exploration Region, the second part of the bracket to determine who would go to the Sweet 16 and probably face the Haunted Mansion. We have Space Ranger Spin versus Alien Swirling Saucers. Now, this was the interesting Toy Story one, and somewhat surprisingly, Space Ranger Spin, up to this point with only 90 votes in, is winning 79-21. That's a huge blowout. This was one that we weren't 100% sure on, as Swirling Saucers was eliminated in round 1. By a large margin, but we thought perhaps up against something, because it lost to the People Mover the previous year. So we thought maybe Space Ranger Spin, which is not as great of a contender as the People Mover, perhaps it would do better, perhaps even win. That's not the case. Dan, we're looking at these live now, right?
Yep. So we're taking a look at, you just went over match 3, right?
That's correct.
Match 4 now. We have the Rock and Roller Coaster versus the Monorail. Ooh, Rock and Roller Coaster is doing pretty strong.
Rock and Roller Coaster is doing strong, but not strong enough. That is impressive that Monorail is holding anything whatsoever. It's interesting. Perhaps there's a few people that don't enjoy roller coasters out there.
Matchup 5. Let's see how that's paired up. Of course, Dinosaur is just dominating.
Dinosaur is dominating, and I gotta say that I'm not surprised it's winning, but I'm surprised it's dominating. Nate, did you have any thoughts on Dinosaur versus Mad Tea Party?
Ooh, Dinosaur versus Mad Tea Party. This takes me back to a memory of Dan saying now that he's a father that the teacups are his worst nightmare. And that's exactly what my father used to say. At a certain point, you just kind of lose all of your inner ear fluid, and your equilibrium gets all kinds of thrown off. And the teacups make you sufficiently nauseous just by looking at them. So I think possibly the Dinosaur ride, despite the nostalgic pull that the teacups have, that the Dinosaur probably has it in the pocket.
All right, what's the next matchup we're trying to see here?
Spaceship Earth versus the Seas.
This is a huge blowout for a 3 seed versus a 14 seed. Something that I'm honestly a little surprised is going that way. But again, early voting is done by super fans, so perhaps it'll even out a little bit over time. But with
Yep.
185 votes, 88 to 11, 88 to 12 is significant.
Again, and if you're watching this, make sure to retweet some of your fan favorites, some of those battles, as well as just the main threads. Share them with all your friends. Get as many people as you can to get in there and vote, because the more votes we have and the more data we have in future years, we're going to be able to break down these brackets even better. So with match number 7, here we go. Journey of the Little Mermaid versus Frozen Ever After. It looks like Frozen Ever After is doing pretty well, which is kind of surprising.
The battle of the princesses, like we thought, and it seems like, despite the fact that, as Kevin so accurately put it, living in the carcass of a former better ride, that Elsa seems to be
well, it needed to survive
not letting this one go, as they say.
I like that one better than my joke.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised Frozen Ever After is doing as well as it is. But again, this is going to change a lot when we get more retweets and people come in and a fan favorite. I think Journey of the Little Mermaid is hurting right now because of the way that this is framed. Journey of the Little Mermaid, when I see that, I immediately don't think of the dark ride. I think of the Hollywood Studio show. So maybe I'm just making excuses for my false prediction.
All right, matchup number 8, we have Expedition Everest versus Nemo the Musical. And of course, this is exactly what we thought would happen, right?
Seems like Yeti versus fish. Yeti will win, regardless if it works or not, every time.
Expedition Everest, it's going to do well. I think it's going to do really well this year. I think it's going to do better than we've ever seen it before. And this is a fantastic start for it.
I think I agree with you, saying as a layman that just visits the parks and enjoys them as an average person. And Expedition Everest is quite the exciting, just a really, really solid, great roller coaster. And a little bit underrated, I think. But in theming and in execution, the ride is super solid. And I would vote for it myself.
Yeah, I think that we're going to definitely be seeing Expedition Everest going up against Frozen Ever After, and it's going to dominate and dominate and dominate. I think that it's the second seed for a reason, and I think that it's going to face off against the first seed in this region easily. Kev, do you see anything that really is going to stand in Everest's way to get to Haunted Mansion? You even guessed that it might even take, to go to the final 2. It may even win it all.
It all depends. The Haunted Mansion has such a strong fan base, such a strong online social media presence. This is so much based off of retweets. You retweet to an audience of yours that likes Haunted Mansion, and those are all going to vote for Haunted Mansion, regardless of whether they're voting for anything else. So it's difficult somewhat to determine. But, we look at this. Spaceship Earth, we're getting that swan song in a way of the current iteration. Perhaps that's going to help. Perhaps Spaceship Earth, if it beats Nemo and Friends, it's probably going to go against Dinosaur. And then it's going to beat, if it beats Dinosaur, then perhaps it will beat Expedition Everest. But that is a matchup that we would just have to see in order to, not to believe, but just to see what happens, I guess.
Do you see any upsets? Do you predict any of these matchups in round 1 to just completely blow us away and take us by surprise?
In round 1 in general, or in this region specifically?
In this region specifically. I don't know if Nate has one. I don't know if you have one. I've been kind of going through this and thinking, I think that Alien Swirling Saucers, I'm going to put a lot of, I think that just that ride just has such a clean, warm, colorful aesthetic. And I think that Buzz Lightyear Space Age Spin is just getting tired. And that Buzz animatronic is not I don't know. I think the Alien Swirling Saucers, well, it's not going to do well. I think it's going to do, I think it's definitely going to beat Buzz Lightyear 100%.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I think I would have to agree with you, Dan, thinking in this region, but also the other regions too, as far as like the new and exciting rides, they're giving something that people are really responding to, and they could very possibly take over some of these older, more, quote, tired rides, like you were saying.
Yeah. Kev, any of them stand out to you?
Well, Frozen Ever After is technically upsetting Little Mermaid at the moment, but it's getting closer, it looks like. If Mad Tea Party is not going to be Dinosaur, but Dinosaur isn't dominating. You would think it would be doing better, but it's not. Rock and Roller Coaster, you think it would be doing better, and it's losing traction, 62-38. That is that's significant. So that's significant for the monorail for just somehow, and it's not as though the monorail hasn't done this before with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Somehow, the monorail was able to get a 78-22 loss, which is a loss, but it's not, as we're seeing in some of these other matchups, 92-8, 90-10, 78-22 against an attraction that eventually goes on to the Elite Eight or Final Four is something to be proud of. If an attraction was sentient and could have thoughts. So yeah, I think that we're looking at that matchup as well. But could we go down the list of and just look at these matchups?
Let's start off the top and kind of scroll our way through.
Nate, could you read these off for us
and see how some of the matchups are doing?
Absolutely. All right. So here in match 1, Haunted Mansion, the number 1 seed versus the number 16 seed, the Lightning McQueens. Pretty much a no-brainer, kind of like we called it. The Haunted Mansion with a clean sweep so far with 311 votes, 95.8% of the vote. It's going to Haunted Mansion. No surprise there, I think. Then we got
no
surprise.
No surprise. I think I don't know, like Racing Academy. I maybe if it would have been Lightning McQueen, then it would have been. I don't know. Maybe the name Lightning McQueen would have helped it here, but it is being dominated. Being dominated to the point of what we're looking at here. Interestingly, is Haunted Mansion beat Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor in the first round last year, and if we go find Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. Although I'm not sure. Oh, here. It's now an 11 seed after being a 16 seed for 2 years in a row because it held its own 91-9 against the Haunted Mansion. But if we go back up to the Haunted Mansion poll to see that, it was at 96-4. So, it's not doing nearly as well as Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor. But Monsters Inc. got moved up very significantly this year, just based off its performance in 2018, and we haven't even got there yet. So let's look at what's going down with our rematch between Navi River Journey and Mission Space.
Yeah, it's kind of like we thought. The 8 seed versus a 9 seed, always probably going to be a close matchup. It looks like the Navi River Journey is pulling ahead just behind Mission Space, 59.2% versus the 40.8%.
Yes,
Am I reading that right? Yes, the Navi River Journey at 59.2% versus Mission Space 40. It's still a pretty close race this early in the voting, but the number 8 seed looks like it is pulling ahead of the number 9 seed.
Yeah, I think if you get some more laymen in to vote, then perhaps Mission Space stands a better chance. It's going to be interesting to see. We're looking at these. We're recording what they are early on and how that's going to change. That's another thing we haven't done yet. We're looking at this as of specific times very early on. This poll's only been open for 11 minutes. In 3 minutes, another poll will open. Right, Dan?
Absolutely. At 8:30, we're going to have Region 2 drop in there. Get ready.
So let's keep going down the line here.
All right, the match number 3, we have Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin versus the other Toy Story attraction, Alien Swirling Saucers. Now, we thought the aliens might have a good chance against Buzz Lightyear, but looks like Buzz is at a strong lead.
A very healthy lead, and again, somewhat surprised. I can't say I'm disappointed. Alien Swirling Saucers is not my favorite in this race, personally or statistically, but it is doing rather well. Space Ranger Spin, even given that. So I guess let's move on to the second one. To the next one.
From match number 4, as far as the votes go, the Aerosmith's Rock and Roller Coaster is ahead by 62% versus the 38% of the Monorail. Now, this is a classic, high-speed attraction versus the classic monorail that takes you around to all the parks. Like I said, I was questioning if the monorail even counts as an attraction. But comparatively, as far as the votes go for other things, looks like the monorail is actually doing pretty well. But Rock and Roller Coaster seems to be pulling ahead so far in the competition.
It's hard to say why monorail's doing so well. And I'm a little concerned for Rock and Roller Coasters trek after this because of this.
Yeah, not so much of a clean sweep as we would have assumed right out of the gate. Monorail is doing incredibly well.
Speaking of clean sweep,
Now
though,
on to
Dinosaur is sipping tea out of those cups and holding court.
Dinosaur is stomping all over those teacups and drinking everything in sight with a 74.4% of the vote versus the Mad Tea Party's meager 25.1%.
And then we see a very similar story here with Spaceship Earth and the Seeds with Nemo, 88.1 to 11.9 at the moment. That could change. More votes are coming in, but it's not going to win.
Still neck and neck with Journey and Ariel and Mermaid and Frozen. And then, of course, Expedition Everest is still dominating. But now it's time, because it's 8:30, to move to our next bracket on Twitter, the Imagination Regional Round 1. And we're going to take a look at that bracket right now.
All right, the voting is now open for Imagination Bracket Round 1 with our first matchup, Splash Mountain, the number 1 seed, versus Awesome Planet, the number 16 seed. The name not denoting its level in seed. What do we think, guys? We think Splash Mountain's going to definitely take this one, I think, right out of the gate.
Splash Mountain's certainly going to win here, Nate. That's pretty obvious. I think there's no chance Awesome Plan's going to pull it off. And as we're looking, with only 7 votes, which is nothing and is not a good judge, it's surprising that Awesome Plan has any votes. But it's 88 to 12 now with 24 votes. And we're going to look at the next matchup, which is Muppet Vision 3D versus Grand Fiesta Tour. And this is one of those that who's going to win. Muppet Vision 3D is currently winning, but it is close with only 18 votes. Muppet Vision 3D at 61 to 39. 18 votes is all we've got so far. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train versus Cowley River Rapids with 19 votes. 100% of the vote goes to Seven Dwarfs. That is significant, and that might be indicative of how much they're going to win. We're also going to look at Midway Mania versus Enchanted Tales with Belle. Midway Mania is dominating here. Midway Mania does so well in these tournaments. I don't know why, but it does, and it's doing well once again. Then when the next we have the Enchanting Tiki Room versus the Walt Disney World Railroad, and the Tiki Room's doing well, 72 to 28 with 85 votes, but not that well, which is surprising. And now, do we have the votes on screen so we can look at these now?
Yep.
Jungle Cruise versus the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Jungle Cruise is blowing them out of the water right now.
Yeah, we're slowly you guys are voting so fast, so much that it's upsetting the Twitter gods.
We're having a hard time populating, getting the proper numbers right here in real time. But yeah, it looks like the Jungle Cruise is taking that gun that they don't use anymore on the boat and blowing Winnie the Pooh out of the water, literally.
And this is significant. Runaway Railway is running away with the vote, 60 to 40 right now, with 48 votes in. There's a lot of time to go, but how is this possible?
That is incredible. That is actually incredible and surprising and really interesting at the same time.
And what's so interesting about this voting system versus some others is that although you could hear us right now telling you who's voting, everyone that's not, which is most people, they're just voting blind. They don't know who's in the lead. Should they know who's in the lead, that would greatly affect how well they're doing.
Yeah, I kind of like the way that the system works, in that you have to choose who's in your heart before you know how the general public has chosen with you.
Absolutely, which would greatly affect how it's chosen.
Any runaways in this matchup that you see? Do you see anything? Do you predict any of these matches to deliver a strong upset, or do you think that everyone is going to be pretty much as predicted?
Out of the gate, I think obviously Splash Mountain, I think, is the clear winner out of its specific matchup. But I feel like the really exciting one, the one that is holding close true to my and our hearts, is Muppet Vision versus Grand Fiesta Tour. That one could go either way with such a close 8 to versus 9 seed. But yeah, Dan or Kevin, do you guys think there's anyone that could go either way, or if there's the Runaway Railway and the Country Bear Jamboree, I think, is the one that's really intriguing to watch.
That's the matchup that I'm looking at. I just can't get over it. I'm actually about to promote Country Bear Jamboree, and this is what's so interesting about this is I'm going to sway the vote by, in all caps, vote Country Bear Jamboree, or hopefully.
Don't let the bears get run over by this train.
And now I am, wondering how do you spell Jamboree, and I was right, and now I'm going to tweet it. So, perhaps, I'm
Jamboree is a tricky word to spell, Kev. So you're fine.
I don't have that many Twitter followers, but a healthy 44,000 might sway this current 238 vote race.
Kev, you dropped something. Hold on, let me pick that up.
Oh, yeah, you dropped your.
Thank you.
You dropped all of your.
You dropped all your Twitter followers.
There.
Let me pick that up for you.
Yeah. Sorry. Did I drop that?
Let me sweep that up. Hold on.
Thank you.
I love you guys. Yeah,
we're gonna see.
Yeah,
Country Bear Jamboree do very well.
I think that you're gonna see. I think that just like any kind of influencers, because that's what they call us, right? That we can influence a lot of things. And, you sending this out for Country Bear Jamboree, someone like some of these more popular Muppet accounts getting a hold of these votes and sharing them with their fans. We know, of course, the People Mover cone is notorious for swaying the public opinion in these. So, I think that plays a little bit into the game, and I think it plays a little bit into what we can come to expect in the future
Also, I think
rounds.
the People Mover cone is the band that's going to play at the next Epcot Eat to the Beats.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if I've seen any Eats the Beats, if I'm going to be entirely
honest. That was a bad band name joke. I was just the People Mover Cone sounds like a great band name, and I would watch them play at the American Pavilion at Epcot.
I think let's take a close.
Country Bear Jamboree is making somewhat of a comeback. It's closed the lead to 57 to 43. And
I'm not gonna lie, boys. I was really the only thing I was concerned about in this bracket was Muppet Vision to pull ahead. But honestly, now I am more intrigued about Mickey's Runaway Railway versus the Country Bear Jamboree. That is the one that I am most concerned about. What's gonna happen?
Yeah, if we take a look at match number 2, Muppet Vision 3D is holding a strong lead with 66 over Grand Fiesta Tour's 33%. So I don't know if Muppet Vision is going to be nearly as nervous as we thought it would have to be. I think it's going to take it home. But there's still plenty of time to tell. Still plenty of time to vote.
And in just a few short minutes, we're going to be opening up the third region. But, we're looking at this, and I'm going to go back just for a second and look at the round 1 results to see how that's doing. Mission Space still losing 61 to 39 to Navi River Journey. Alien Swirling Saucers seems to be gaining a little bit of ground. Maybe I'm wrong. To Space Ranger Spin, still a blowout Space Ranger Spin. Monorail gaining ground against Rock and Roller Coaster. Surprising. Dinosaur, Mad Tea Party is obliterating Mad Tea Party. Frozen Ever After. It looks like it could be Journey into the Little Journey of the Little Mermaid. 57 to 43 right now, and then finally Expedition Everest is obliterating Nemo the musical. This is fascinating to look at, but let's turn our attention back to the Imagination region, which is the one we are currently in. Or no, what are we in? The Imagination? That's correct.
Imagination is the one we most recently opened,
and
if we take a look at the matchups and see how they're doing here with matchup number 1, Splash Mountain, of course, holding a very, very strong lead. Muppet Vision, of course, taking
Awesome
over.
Planet not doing so awesome.
Absolutely.
They're doing very bad, actually. Primeval Whirl was up against Splash Mountain in round 1 last year, and Primeval Whirl ended up being eliminated, of course, but 94-6. So this is even worse. Awesome Planet is holding even worse up against Splash Mountain than Primeval World did. Primeval World is, of course, the 15 seed against Pirates of the Caribbean this year. So they actually moved up in the race from a 16 seed to a 15 seed. Perhaps they're going to do better, but they're not going to win. Nothing is that surprising. As much as we like to talk about upsets and twists in this game, the seeds are there for a reason, and they seem to be playing out pretty much how we predicted.
Absolutely. You got
We're also looking at
matchup 3, Seven Dwarfs Train, absolutely dominating Cali River Rapids, an attraction that, again, like I said, I haven't ridden since I haven't been on since Animal Kingdom opened. So
which is actually really interesting because the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is one that people say they can't ride unless they get a fast pass, and then the Cali River Rapids is one that people just don't seem to ride at all. So two rides that not anybody gets to ride ever, and Seven Dwarfs seems to be having a clean sweep.
Yeah, but it's doing, it is a 5 seed versus a 12 seed if I'm remembering correctly. Yes. So it's not running away with it. But look, Seven Dwarves went against the Monorail last year. The Monorail's doing weirdly well against Rock and Roller Coaster right now, but the Monorail lost 66-34 against Seven Dwarves. So Seven Dwarves is faring better against Cali River Rapids than the Monorail, which is interesting.
No surprise then, of course, that the Midway Mania is doing so well with Enchanted Tales with Belle. I think we pretty much saw that was definitely going to be happening. What's interesting,
people love to shoot darts instead of reading books.
What's interesting,
you could play a Wii game where the chair moves for you.
Right. What's interesting is how strong WDW Railroad is holding against the Enchanted Tiki Room. I guess this isn't nearly as loved as and nearly much of a slam dunk as I thought.
The Tiki Room really doesn't do all that well in these tournaments for whatever reason. I think it's one of those situations where a singular fan base really likes it, and everybody else really doesn't, and they will vote for anything that is not it. And I think that's what we're seeing again and again and again.
Enchanted Tiki Room.
Same with
Enchanted Tiki Room, Country Bear. They're like that one uncle you like. It's you definitely want them to be around, but if you have to pick, you definitely still want to hang out with grandma and grandpa. You know what I mean? Like
you'll be really sad if something bad happens to them,
right.
But you really don't ever go see them.
You're not super invested in that uncle. You know
let's go down. Let's go down to Country Bear.
Ooh,
50,
my.
It's basically 50-50 at this time. I mean, it's tied. It might as well be tied. With 501 votes in, Mickey's Runaway Railway is only beating Country Bear Jamboree 50.5 to 49.5.
This is really going to be the one to watch. This is a claw biter. If I would to be so bold.
It's surprising, honestly. But we didn't know how this would go, and I think it's
interesting to see to me that people are even voting for it because we have so many train attractions in the parks already. Did we need another Runaway train attraction? You know what I mean? We've got Big Thunder, then we've got Seven Dwarves, and we've got I don't know. I think that Country Bear might take them.
It's close. We're looking at more votes coming in. I don't know when this would refresh, but when it does, who knows what it'll be? Flight of Passage destroying Beauty and the Beast SingAlong. Somewhat expected, but let's look at how Flight of Passage did against its 15 seed in the previous year. It beat Finding Nemo the Musical, and Finding Nemo the Musical is currently losing very healthily to Expedition Everest, or I guess unhealthy for Nemo. Nemo the Musical was eliminated 83-17 against Flight of Passage. So Nemo the Musical is doing much better than Beauty and the Beast SingAlong. Now, if we compare that to a matchup between Beauty and the Beast SingAlong and Finding Nemo, and this isn't exactly correct, but if we used any semblance of the transitive property in a matchup between Beauty and the Beast and SingAlong and Finding Nemo would win.
Absolutely, so, hands down. I would say that. Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting. 100%. But Kev, we're rounding up on another voting round dropping on Twitter for the educational region. And so everyone hang tight. In just a few seconds, that is going to drop.
And as we wait for that to drop, we will continue to look through these. So at any moment, Dan is going to drop his
the educational, and we'll look to see how the Rise of the Resistance does against Prince Charming's Regal Carousel. We'll get to see how the Journey into Imagination versus the Festival of Lion King, Space Mountain versus Hall of Presidents, Carousel of Progress versus the Indiana Jones Stunt Show, Test Track versus Goofy's Barnstormer, the Big Thunder Mountain versus the Swiss Family Treehouse, and Dumbo the Flying Elephant versus the brand new Smuggler's Run, and of course the People Mover versus Epcot's American Adventure. When this is about to be open in just a few for that vote. So what do we think, Dan, Kevin? Is there anything that we have to look out for in the educational round? Any upsets, any clean sweeps?
Pretty wild to me that Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run ended up in the same bracket together for a based on how the basic 64 seeds all played out. So it's going to be I think people are going to pay real close attention to this, and the voting has just opened for that. So if everyone wants to head over to the Twitter page, you can begin voting on the educational regional round 1. Kev, while the votes start to come in, what face-off are you going to be paying a close attention to as the votes start to come in?
Well, how well is Rise of the Resistance going to do? Is there any dissent to its inclusion this year? That's what we're going to look at immediately. Festival of the Lion King, Journey into Your Imagination with Figment. These have both made it to round 2 in the past. I say Festival of the Lion King is going to run away with it, but is an 8 and 9 seed. We just don't know. Space Mountain versus Hall of Presidents. That's easy. Carousel Progress versus Indiana Jones Stunt Show. Carousel gets it every day. Test Track wins over Barnstormer. That's an easy one. Big Thunder Mountain, Swiss Family Treehouse. Big Thunder every day. Dumbo versus Smuggler's Run. Another one. That's to look out for. Will Smuggler's Run do better than Dumbo? It's ranked lower, but I think it's underranked. I think it's going to win. Then People Mover versus American Adventure. There's no chance there, but we know we have some People Mover fans. People Mover fans this year are upset that their attraction got knocked back down to a 2 seed after last year being a 1 seed despite doing really well. Rise of the Resistance at the top of this bracket is the attraction that knocked the People Mover down. It'll be interesting to see how these matchups go, and we are about to go straight to the source. Let's see how these votes are doing.
All right. Yeah, it could go any way. We know, it's surprising to see what Rise of the Resistance would do, being such a brand new attraction, but we're already showing that Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is doing surprisingly well for being such a brand new attraction and being open for so long.
Recency might mean absolutely nothing. People live vicariously through YouTube, especially now, more than ever. So, and for some reason,
Twitter is still registering the votes. So
Twitter is broken on my phone, so I can't even read.
I have this tweet is unavailable.
I have that as well.
A lot of this thread. So the education round, Twitter is not taking too kindly
Twitter
for.
Is
Apologies,
not
folks.
This at all.
It's too much for even Twitter's brain.
We're giving it all we got.
I'm doing what I can, Captain.
I can tell you that Smuggler's Run is winning 70-30 to Dumbo the Flying Elephant with 40 votes currently in.
Yeah, remember that the way that the Twitter threads work, it posts the tweets technically backwards in your feed until it has a second and hiccups and then snaps them all back in line. So I think a lot of people might get exposed to the bottom matchups first. So maybe we can take a look at how People Mover is dominating the American Adventure with 93.2 to 6.8%.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Daniel? You were like, you'll go to the American Adventure every single time.
Apparently the people weren't moved, is what
good old drinking
learned.
buddies, Ben Franklin and Mark Twain.
He takes a step. There's a walking animatronic in that show. It's impressive, folks.
And every time we watch it together, we all cheer and make an audible sound of like, whoa! And that's a true story for you folks at home.
Twitter does not like this, and we are trying to figure out why.
Why Twitter is not having it.
Well, Twitter is not having it at all. Is it working on the web browser, Dan?
Yeah, the votes are popping in. We've got 166 votes with Smuggler's Run dominating with 72% right now, which is a pretty strong lead.
And these are the only ones that are available to people right now, it seems. Everything else has been made unavailable by Twitter for whatever reason.
Yep, I see Smuggler's Run and Dumbo on the web browser on a desktop. versus and People Mover versus American Adventure are the only ones that people seem to be able to vote for. Everything else is unavailable in the thread.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going on if it ever stops doing what it's doing right now. Perhaps the Twitter thought it was spamming. There was too many votes, too many tweets at once. Dan, do you think that might have anything to do with it?
I don't know. I've done this every year prior, and that's never happened.
Very interesting. While Dan tries to reconcile what's happening in the education region round, are we able to backtrack and look at how some of the previous ones are doing, Kev?
Absolutely, and we're looking at Country Bear because who cares about anything else? Country Bear is losing its lead. It was up very shortly, and now Mickey's Runaway Railway is beating the Country Bear Jamboree 51-49. Another tweet is unavailable in this thread. Again, not sure what's going on here. But match 6, which would be, I forget what match 6 would be. It is also now unavailable, which is going to be something to look out for. Then Enchanted Tiki Room versus Walt Disney World Railroad. Enchanted Tiki Room is doing very, very well, but not as well as you would think, given its fan favorite. 66-34 there. Midway Mania, Enchanted Tales. Midway Mania winning 90-10. That is significant, and I can't overstate that. There should not be a 90-10 winning percentage in round one versus what is Midway Mania? Is it a 4 versus a 13, or is that a 5 versus a 12?
Let's see. We are in.
Let's see. This would be the.
It's a 4 versus a 13. Midway Mania versus Enchanted Tales with Belle. Midway Mania is a 4 seed. Enchanted Tales with Belle is a 13 seed.
Yeah, so that should not be happening. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train 78-22 versus Kelly River Rapids. Interesting, but not that unexpected. Splash Mountain is absolutely obliterating 96-4.
No real surprise there.
We are losing more polls as we speak.
The polls are dropping like flies. The internet cannot handle
everyone,
all of this excitement.
People are
way to
sending
go, Disney fans,
to us as if for some reason we don't know that something's wrong. But thank you for doing so in case we didn't, but we do. So we're just going to continue to look at the matchups that we can for now.
Absolutely. I am still baffled and excited about the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway versus the Country Bear Jamboree. Mickey and Minnie, as of right now, my recent refresh, is ahead 51.2% versus Country Bear Jamboree's 48.8% with 690 votes.
Yeah, it's all very
folks, I think that a lot of your Twitters might be cached, and I think that a lot of people might have cached Twitter. This is the first time we've ever broadcasted this live, so I didn't anticipate. But from my end, on my browser, in my account, nothing has been suspended or deleted. I think that it might just be Twitter's auto mod looking at it strongly, but we'll keep an eye on it.
So Dan, yours are up and you're seeing numbers, but if we look at it, those of us looking at it,
plenty of people are still voting on all of them. So I think that it's just a matter of.
Let's scroll up to some of those for us.
All right, why don't you show us what you got, Dan? Let's take a look at what you're able to see in this new education region.
That is odd.
But you said match 1, Splash Mountain versus Awesome Planet.
This is actually
should be changed to the name Awesome Mountain because it is dominating in this round.
Sorry, Dan. On your web browser, can you see the results of the other votes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the educational regional round 1.
Someone in the comments says it's not fair to skew the vote with Twitter followers, and I completely disagree. That's just part of the game. That's why Haunted Mansion actually continues to win, because it has such a strong Twitter presence. This is not its own. Like, this is not, an isolated vote, unfortunately.
And Twitter is just people, you're a person, so get on Twitter and vote and sway it your way.
Yes. We are showcasing We are showcasing this entire matchup on all these platforms,
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. But Twitter is just a place where you actually get to chime in and vote. So it's not solely Twitter only.
And if you think that it's not fair to skew the vote by sending it out to your Twitter followers, go ahead and read some of the comments on when I told people to vote for Country Bear Jamboree. I did not convince them by any means. There are some people there that refuse to vote for Country Bear.
All right, we want to take a look at some of the results in the educational regional round one.
Absolutely. This is the newest one.
Absolutely.
That's open. We got to take a look at that.
With 10 votes, I don't believe this is this is updating and ready to go. So we'll continue to look at the other regions because that's only 10 votes versus the ones that are available on Twitter's AI.
Nope, further down we go. They're starting to load up. We've got 119
because
on
they're
match 5.
As Daniel said, you said the later matches, the lower matches are posting first before the up to match 1. So match 1 was populating later on people's feeds, and that's why those votes are a little bit lower at this present time.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we'll continue to look at that. Test Track is destroying Barnstormer. Big Thunder Mountain is destroying. I mean, these are all blowouts, except for Smuggler's Run, which is kind of, the
Yeah, right out of the gate when things were populating on the Twitter page for the poll, people were coming out of the woodwork for the People Mover versus the American Adventure.
Smuggler's Run is holding a strong lead over Dumbo, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is extremely significant. We might have to figure out a different way, but are we about to see the fourth round of votes, Dan?
Yep, the fourth round of votes are going to drop in just 5 minutes, so everyone hang tight. At 9 o'clock, the last round will 100% be dropping, the inspiration round.
All right, looking like out of the two classic ones, Big Thunder Mountain versus Swiss Family Treehouse, Big Thunder Mountain with a strong lead right out of the gate. But if we, if the polling for the imagination round, the inspiration round are going to open up here in about 4 minutes. We have, boys, the Tower of Terror versus Tomorrowland Speedway, the Kilimanjaro Safari versus PhilharMagic, Soarin' versus Turtle Talk with Crush, Star Wars Star Tours versus It's Tough to Be a Bug, Peter Pan's Flight versus Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor, Slinky Dog Dash versus A Great Bird Adventure, It's a Small World versus Living with the Land, and Pirates of the Caribbean or Caribbean versus Primeval Whirl. Now, boys, what do we think? Are there any super upsets? Are there any ones that we really think could go either way?
And this is the upcoming region, correct? This is the last inspiration region.
This is for the upcoming in the next 3 minutes inspiration that the polls will open for.
I think, I don't know. Tower of Terror is going to go away with it. I think Kilimanjaro Safari and PhilharMagic. I think Kilimanjaro Safari is underranked. I think it's going to destroy it. Soarin', Turtle Talk with Crush, that's no-brainer. Soarin' every day. Star Tours always does well. It's Tough to Be a Bug, not that well loved. Peter Pan's Flight, Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, both you can take them or leave them for me. I don't enjoy either of these attractions that much. Perhaps Monsters Inc. could pull off an upset, but I doubt it. Slinky Dog Dash is going to run away with it. I think Living with the Land is going to upset It's a Small World personally, and the Pirates of the Caribbean is going to win.
Okay. Now, the big one, the 8 seed versus 9 seed is always really intriguing, but Kilimanjaro Safari versus the PhilharMagic, two totally different types of rides. What do you think could pull out ahead of that matchup?
The Kilimanjaro Safari and PhilharMagic?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Kilimanjaro Safari every day. PhilharMagic is just not a spectacle anymore. It was, in the days of budget cuts in the early 2000s when it was initially introduced, and it was an opening attraction in Hong Kong in 2005. Perhaps back then it could have stood a chance, but it's not special and it's outdated. It just doesn't look good anymore. I don't know if they updated the. I don't know if we updated the film on that yet, but if not, that's going to hold it back. And I think even that really poor film that they have right now hurts a lot of people's impression of it. Dan, do we have any update on the polls?
Yep.
Yeah, before we open the polling for the new bracket here in just about a minute, what are the updates of the most recent one, of the educational region?
It's starting to receive some votes, so I imagine that in the near future it's going to finish and open up. They'll get released because they're slowly getting votes in, so I know that they're available to people. It's just a matter of Twitter, D-list.
Is there any of the numbers we could look at of the educational region after the People Mover versus American Adventure? After that match 8, match 7, and 6, could we take a look and see what those numbers are looking at before we open the votes for the inspiration round?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, let's see.
It's unfortunately matchup 5, and now if any indicator is that they're probably going to limit the next round, but we'll still go ahead with plans.
Absolutely, we got to roll with it.
Let's keep the show rolling.
So we knew match 8 of the educational region, the People Mover was taking a strong lead right out of the gate. If we scroll down to match 7, what are the numbers looking like on that battle? Dumbo, the Flying Elephant versus Smuggler's Run. Smuggler's still with a strong lead against Dumbo. New versus the old. Looks like the new is going to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, Smuggler's Run, like I said, I thought it was underranked, and I think I'm right. I think it should have been higher, and I think it's doing just as I expected. I think it's I thought it might be a little closer, but it is doing well. And so as we come to 9 o'clock, there should be another round opening.
Yep, another
That's
round
right. We are
just dropped, and votes are already pouring in.
The fourth bracket, Inspiration, where we just talked about Tower of Terror, seemingly the number 1 seed, versus the 16 seed Tomorrowland Speedway. Then we have Pirates of the Caribbean versus Primeval World down at the other end. Again, a lot of interesting matchups coming up here. I'm really personally intrigued with the Battle of the Boats, the number 7 seed versus the number 10 seed Living with the Land versus It's a Small World. I'm really intrigued how that one's going to go.
These are all going to be interesting, Nate. I think Living with the Land is going to go away with it. And, there's not a lot of votes in right now, but with 2 votes, they are up 100%. One of those was me, and I just predicted it, so I guess that doesn't count. The Pirates OTC MK is going to beat Primeval World with 52 votes. And as we look, this poll does not seem to be having any issues so far. So hopefully it stays that way. But these are being populated very quickly. We're looking at Tower of Terror beating Tomorrowland Speedway 93-7. So this is an indication of how well Tower of Terror is going to do, only in that we can compare it to what it was last year. So we go down and see Tower of Terror is the first seed this year. They were first seed, eliminated in the Elite 8 by Haunted Mansion, knocked them down to a 2 seed in 2019, eliminated in the Final 4 by Splash Mountain, 53-47, extremely close race. That said, we have King Arthur's Carousel is what they beat in the first round last year. The Carousel this year is going against Rise of the Resistance, or the Prince Charming Carousel, excuse me. And they were eliminated in round 1, obviously, 89-11. So it's either one of 2 options. Either one, Tomorrowland Speedway is not as beloved of an attraction as the Carousel, and at that point of the attraction, who knows? But then there's also the chance, or sorry, excuse me, I was talking about Rise of the Resistance. I was correct. Speedway versus Prince Charming Carousel. So it's either that the Carousel is just more popular than the Speedway, or that Tower of Terror is just doing better this year. We go down the line to Kilimanjaro Safaris. In Kilimanjaro Safaris is doing 77% to 23. This was my prediction. And it looks like that I was right.
So it looks like there's still just a little.
We're going to change your name to Miss Cleo.
It was first,
Kevin.
the first 5 matchups in educational were an issue, and now it's only the first 4. I think that Twitter's slowly clearing them up. But worst case scenario, we'll just add those polls to the end of that that bracket thread. Worst case scenarios. Just
right.
stick around,
ladies
folks.
and gentlemen.
Hang
Apologies.
tight.
It seems like the education voting ones are having issues on Twitter. The other ones are up and running. Please click and vote. We're going to work
This will be the only
studiously on
time.
fixing the ones in education.
This will
But
also
as
be
of
the
right
only
now, all of
time that it'll be 4 Twitter threads. From here on out, it'll only be 2, and then eventually it'll get down to just 1. So just hang tight, and let's take a look at what votes are in for inspirational. Kev?
Yeah, so here we have Tower of Terror versus Tomorrowland Speedway. I just talked about that, and then we're looking down further to Kilimanjaro Safari, absolutely obliterating. This is an 8 seed versus a 9 seed. Remember, these are the matchups that should be rather close. Not the case at all. Kilimanjaro Safari destroying Philhar Magic. If we go down even further in this bracket to look at the 5 seed versus the 12 seed in this, we will see. I will get it up on my phone. Unless Dan, yep, thank you.
Soren is just soaring away with the votes.
And this is not normal for Soren. You know, they last year they beat Magic Carpets. Magic Carpets, of course, eliminated from the tournament this year. Soren, or excuse me, let's see, where is Soren? Yeah, so Soren beat Magic Carpets. Magic Carpets was eliminated from the tournament this year, but they lost first round 94-6. Very similar here. So I guess you could say Magic Carpets versus Turtle Talk with Crush would have been a much more interesting debate. That said, Soren, there's no debate here that Soren is just destroying. Let's go down to Star Tours versus Tough to Be a Bug. Again, not a surprise. Star Tours does really, really well in this tournament for whatever reason. It's just a classic attraction for the park, and it's been there for a long time. I think people just have they just enjoy it. It's eliminated in the Sweet 16. By Flight of Passage as a 7th seed in 2018, and in 2019 it was a 6th seed where it was eliminated in the Sweet 16 to Flight of Passage again.
I think the strength of Star Tours is that it's a classic ride. It's been there since the late 80s, but it also has changed with the times. It's updated with the current zeitgeist of Star Wars. So it's updated its effects, it's updated its 3D, and it's keeping in line with the current canon. And I think that's what keeps it coming back strong.
Absolutely.
Peter Pan's Flight is running away with this competition. I'm surprised it's doing so well, and not surprised. I guess just disappointed. Let's keep going.
Just disappointed. Just like when you walk into Magic Kingdom and you see that wait time for Peter Pan's Flight is sitting at 75 minutes.
It's just
all the time, no matter what time of day it is.
Absolutely.
Slinky Dog Dash is, of course, dominating.
Ride versus a live bird show. Seemingly, on average, that's what's going to always win an exciting roller coaster.
Disney's desperate attempt to regurgitate Discovery Island into Animal Kingdom.
Slinky Dog Dash is destroying. Here we
go. The battle of the boats, you guys. I called it the battle of the boats. It is indeed a battle, even this early in the competition.
Yeah, Living with the Land, with 251 votes in, is only slightly edging out It's a Small World, and I think it's going to continue to edge out It's a Small World. This is an interesting matchup, and I'm glad it's happening. I think this is going to be just an interesting matchup to watch, and I think Living with the Land, having made it to, let's see, sorry, one moment. What is this, a 7 versus a 10? Yeah, so Living with the Land would be technically upsetting here, but both of these have, Small World made it to the Sweet 16 once, and so Living with the Land was eliminated by Pirates of the Caribbean in round 2 in 2018, and then both of them lost in round 1 the very next year to much tougher matches. So I think this is going to be interesting one to watch. And then the 2 seed versus the 15 seed in this is Pirates of the Caribbean versus Beauty and the Beast live show. And Pirates of the Caribbean, remember, made it to the championship 2 years ago. Let's see if we can't see the results now. Oh, there
Pirates
it is.
Pirates is sitting at 92% versus Primeval Whirls 7.7% with almost 300 votes in currently. Looks like Pirates is the clear winner here.
Remember, these have 22 hours of voting left, an entire day. There's people that are not even awake right now. Who knows what Europe thinks about this? Who knows what Asia thinks about this? Who knows? Maybe there's going to be something that's going to change. Who knows what Africa thinks about this? Who knows what Australia thinks about this? I'm sure more of those are awake than I probably believe they are at the moment. But who knows? Maybe they're not on Twitter.
We've got a strong bracket lineup this year, I think. I think that there's going to be some... it's going to be some fun to see which parks deliver the best attractions to the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. I think that we're going to see Hollywood Studios kind of creep up there higher and higher. But all in all, Magic Kingdom just continues to hold those top spots year after year.
It's true. In all the different regions, Magic Kingdom is pulling out strong with a lot of the attractions. And a lot of it has to do with nostalgic value, but also there's some they still play in current day. And so with this round one being this interesting and exciting and certain ones that it could go either way, I have a feeling that the continuing brackets as we move on every day here this week, it's still going to just keep getting more and more exciting.
The Bears are currently 50-50 with 949 votes in with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. There is a chance that the Country Bears could end up beating Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I mean, it would be tough, but I think they could do it. And if they do that, they would then, of course, have to face. It depends on where they are. I think they're a 7 and 10 seed on. On the bottom left region, and they would have to face Flight of Passage, which I think, maybe the Bears versus Flight of Passage could be even closer than the match we're currently seeing with Runaway Railway.
And it's very possible that if the Country Bears beat the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, then all the current logos that exist across Disney property are going to have to change from Mickey Mouse to Big Al. Disney Dan, what do you think?
I'm a big supporter of Big Al. That's all I have to say. So tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we're going to go live again, and we're going to catch the last 15 minutes of each one of these threads. It looks like the education thread, last I checked, just started to get some more votes in on some of the top polls. But if that doesn't happen, we will release a follow-up, a couple of voting polls so that you guys can all chime in there and make sure you get your votes in. So keep an eye on that. Otherwise, the other three quadrants are still live and up and going. And for the first 15 minutes of the live stream tomorrow, we're going to check out live how all of the polls end up. And then we will kick off live another round of voting and keep an eye on what this means for the next matchups. Kevin, are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Bears end up. That's what I'm really looking at right now. I'm also looking to see, is Kilimanjaro Safari going to continue to dominate? I think it will. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railways in that Bears matchup, but we're also looking at things such as Festival of the Lion King. Is that going to pull ahead? That was another one of my predictions. I think I'm going to be right about that in the end. Everything else seems to be pretty standard. Maybe Peter Pan's Flight's going to lose some ground as more votes come in, but I think that other than that, perhaps Mission Space could make a comeback. I don't think it's going to happen. Those 8 and 9s, those 7 and 10s, maybe even a few of those 6 and 11s, but it looks like everything above that is playing out exactly how we thought it would. That is standard and that is expected. But that said, still very much excited. I'm more excited for round 2 because that's when we're going to have bigger attractions with bigger audiences going against one another, and people are going to have to choose between which one they really think is better. It only gets more fascinating and interesting from here.
Yeah, it's going to get more cutthroat. Nate?
That's right. It gets really exciting. The more when you have to choose, it's like it truly becomes a Sophie's choice as we get down further to the closer brackets. And I'm personally going down for the Muppet Vision I'm pushing for. But I'm really the one that I'm most fascinated about is the Battle of the Boats. Hashtag Battle of the Boats. Living with the Land versus It's a Small World. I cannot wait to see what happens tomorrow.
Right now, Living with the Land and Small World sitting at a 50-50 even split.
Hashtag Battle of the Boats, ladies and gentlemen. Please, hashtag Battle of the Boats. Let's see what's going to happen with this one. This is going to be the true nail biter.
Well, I think that is going to do it for us tonight, guys. Make sure you check in tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern on the Disney Dan channel. Want to thank Defunctland and Nate Begle for hanging out with me, as well as a good friend of ours and Theme Park Tube, Corvin, for helping us put together all the statistics. Thanks, Corv. We appreciate it. And, of course, these adorable little doodles of my two best buddies here by Brian Danger Art. Thanks for tuning in with us, Kevin Nate. I guess we'll see everybody tomorrow.
That's right. Everybody have a good night, and make sure to vote. Share all of these links to your friends and have them vote too. This has been Walt Disney World Attraction Bracket 2020, Round 1. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Round 2. I'm Nate Begle.
I'm Dan.
I'm Kevin Perger.
And we did a great job with this ending.
Yes. It'll
Good
be
night.
even better tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.